Welcome to Soccer in 60, presented by the Empire Strykers. Get ready for your weekly look at all the pro soccer teams in Greater Los Angeles. We've got all the news and analysis you need, from LAFC and the LA Galaxy to the Empire Strykers, Angel City FC, and Orange County Soccer Club. Now, buckle up and enjoy Soccer in 60.
Welcome to Soccer in 60. It's great to be here with you today. We're reeling and rocking. With me today is my good buddy, not Philly, but Nina Kiefer. Nina, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'd like to say that I'm the better looking of the two of us. No, for those of you joining us. Thank you for having me today on Soccer in 60. Of course, we're live on 1490 AM, 98.1 FM in much of the Inland Empire, the KMET app, KMET1490am.com, and of course, Empire Strykers, Instagram, YouTube, all of your major podcast platforms, Soccer in 60. It's so fun to be here.
I'm glad that you're here with us today, Nina. It's going to be a great show. We've got a packed house today. We've got a couple of signings from Angel City. We've got LAFC news and views. We've got a really, really strong interview that you pre-recorded with one of the newest goalkeepers on LA Galaxy, JT Marcinkowski. And we've got a couple of Strykers games to talk about. This is going to be a fun section on Strykers. We've got some very interesting news about County. And we're also going to get into the Strykers and the MASL game that's coming up before too long. Nina, it's going to be an awesome show today.
Lots of fun to come, but you know how Philly says it. Before we get into it, we got to pay the bills. Experience the thrill of the game with Omnitrans in partnership with the Strykers. Be in the heart of the action at Toyota Arena and let us take care of the ride. If you're heading to the game, hop aboard Omnitrans for a seamless journey to Toyota Arena. Simply download the Transit app and catch your bus and enjoy a stress-free trip to cheer on the Strykers. Let's go. Let's get into it. Plenty of fun to come. But, before we get into that, we do want to acknowledge that this is being pre-recorded. We've got Coachella going on starting on Wednesday, February 5th. You're hearing this on February 6th. So we are not going to be getting into the Coachella games because we are pre-recording this. So we want to throw that caveat out. If you want all the Coachella fun, you'll have to hit us up next week.
Yeah, that's a definite thing. I'm on the road in St. Louis this week and seeing some of my family, and I know that you're local there in LA, Nina, but I've been kind of out and about, and as we like to say here in St. Louis, we have some Detroit sunshine today. Slate gray skies, and it's raining.
Same here right now. It is cold and rainy out there, and I don't want to go into it.
Yeah, well, there's a thing here in LA that we do call the weather tax. So, I need to get back and pay that fee.
Absolutely. So, as we said, let's get into LAFC. No Coachella news coming from us today, but they did have a different preseason game. LAFC played Phoenix Rising. And here's the thing about these preseason matches that aren't at Coachella Invitational. We don't get much news. We don't get to see them. We don't get to hear about them, and they're relatively tight-lipped. So if I had to imagine how it went down, I just recapped the whole game from what I wanted to have happened. No. What we do know is that there were 4 goals scored, and LAFC did beat Phoenix Rising. Giroux scored, Buwanga, David Martinez, and Adrian Wibbo. So as far as we know, it's also Giroux's second goal of preseason, which is pretty good, I'd say, for him not being there. The final score was 4-0. So that's a pretty good run for LAFC going into the Coachella Valley Invitational.
Yeah, that's a good result, because what's happening with these guys, especially just even though it is preseason, the games don't matter, getting Giroux to get a biscuit in the basket makes all the difference in the world. Getting him on the score sheet has got to do a lot of boost of his confidence, Nina.
Yeah, we needed to see him get involved in play. I know last season wasn't as great with him up top. He wasn't really scoring, making that impact. So there have definitely apparently been some preseason tweaks that are allowing this to happen. And, LAFC did come out with a fun article. You read this one as well, 25 for 25. And we're going to kind of highlight some of the fun that is within that. So LAFC came up with 25 reasons to be excited for the 2025 season. And I'm going to go a little out of order because I want to make sure we get time for what I think is the most important one. And that is the feature on LAFC midfielder Jude Terry. So Jude Terry also made news this week because he was named to the U.S. men's national team roster for U17 for the 2025 CONCACAF U17 qualifiers. So that game is going to be set for February 10th through 15th in Costa Rica, which LAFC has played in before, which is really exciting, where they went and played Alajuelense, but down in Costa Rica. They're going to aim to qualify for the record 19th FIFA U17 World Cup, as 8 teams will earn spots into the expanded 48-team tournament held in Qatar this November. So Terry's somebody to watch is what it comes down to, and this gets highlighted several times. He is 16 years old and is one of 10 players that have been called up for all 3 training camps since the U17 cycle started last September. He's actually a Chula Vista native, signed with LAFC, their 8th homegrown player in history, and was in the LAFC academy as a 12-year-old. He's made his professional debut with LAFC too, and I'm really excited for this kid.
Yeah, he's going to be a joy to watch. I love the kid's hair. He's got this big giant curly mop on his head. It's amazing. And I think it's going to be the second coming of Kobe Jones, maybe, with that hair. It's going to be great. But to see him at 12 being part of the LAFC Academy, and now just 4 years later, he's part of the U17 call-ups on a consistent basis. Like you said, all 3 training camps he got called up to, and one of only 10 guys to do it. I think you're right, Nina. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And with LAFC making some roster moves, I'm thinking the kid might see some game time with the senior club this year.
I really hope so. We're definitely looking at that midfield and seeing a bunch of new faces. But let's go through some of these 25. So one thing I want to highlight from this list is new kit. That's always exciting. Anytime we get a kit drop, I love it. I think I have 25 LAFC kits currently in my closet. That includes some warm-up tops and things like that. And I wear none of them, which is horrible.
So I take it, Nina, you don't have kids to be able to afford 25 kits.
No, but who's worse than me would be Philly. Philly has a whole kit closet. So that. So they're saying that this is going to be an elevated fit to go along with their mature club with advanced ambition. So I'm not really sure how close speaks to that, but maybe I'm just not girly enough.
Well, I do like their kit that they brought out last year. Philly and I had talked about it, that it has a very LA Aztecs feel to it, from that mid-'80s feel. And that is a fantastic kit. And so anytime they do drop a new kit, it's always fun to go see it and see if it's any better or any worse. And we can talk about it either way. If it's a terrible kit, we'll talk about it. But if they're really putting this much time and effort into it, I think it's going to be a really nice kit when it comes out later this year.
All right. Next up, I want to highlight Hugo Part 2 is what they're Hugo Part 2 is what we're calling it, but they're using the French spelling there. And so Lloris shined, obviously, last year. He went to the All-Star game, compiled 12 clean sheets, which was second in the league, and his first assist in 10 years. So now that he's actually seen his opponents and he's going out, it'll be really exciting to see what he does. But I think the 2025 season is really going to be highlighted by the fact that there are going to be 2 derbies and the expansion of San Diego. The California rivalries are going to be huge. You've got, as we talked about, or we'll talk about later in our interview, San Jose Earthquakes, LA Galaxy, and now San Diego FC. There are so many derbies to come. And most importantly, is it derbies or derbies, Tim? How do you say
It's Derby.
It's Derby. It's Derby day.
It's a derby. You got to have a little bit of that Gaelic flavor to it and say, "Oh, it's a derby."
But yeah, that'll be exciting with new opponents.
Yeah, I mean, with San Diego and especially with the San Diego home opener and things like that, and San Diego coming into the league, I think it's just such an exciting time for soccer here in California, much less the greater LA area. You're seeing a lot of these teams coming in and they're making splashes. And we've seen a lot of these guys before, like David Ferree from San Diego is their keeper, and he played quite a bit for the USL Championship side, Orange County Soccer Club. So you've been to those games, you've seen a lot of these kids are going to be playing for San Diego and things like that. So I think it's going to be just a really fun new set of rivalries, and we'll get into it with JT about that Earthquake LA Galaxy matchup. But I think it's going to be fun to watch these new teams come in and really come into the Noisy Neighbors and everybody else and have fun nicknames for all of these different teams.
Absolutely. So the one thing I want to leave off on, we'll talk a lot about players. I know we've been talking about them all along, but 8-8. The Black and Gold currently has 6 trophies in their case. They've got an MLS Cup, 2 Supporter Shields, 2 Western Conference Championships, and the 24 U.S. Open Cup up for grabs in 2025 in chronological order for them. CONCACAF Champions Cup, Leagues Cup, Supporter Shield, and an MLS Cup. Not to mention, of course, LAFC 2's quest for the Open Cup title. All of which is to say, as LAFC says, the club has a chance to raise its 8th trophy this year in its 8th season of play, which is absolutely fantastic. And we're ramping up to World Cup in 26. So tons to come from the Black and Gold.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So let's move over to Galaxy now, and let's get into this interview. We did, you had this great interview with JT Marcinkowski. Let's get right into it.
Our guest is a brand new goalkeeper with the LA Galaxy. Hailing from Northern California, he joined the San Jose Earthquakes Academy in his early teens and rose through the ranks until spending the 2022 and 23 campaigns as the hands-down starter with the first team. After a nasty knee injury kept him out of the 2024 MLS season, he is back and ready to prove himself with his new club, having joined as a free agent in mid-January. At 27, he's racked up 95 appearances with the Earthquakes, as well as 41 with the USL Championship side, Reno 1868. He is also a former U.S. Youth International who won the CONCACAF U20 Championship with this country in 2017. It is such a pleasure to have with us new Galaxy goalkeeper, JT Marcinkowski. JT, welcome to Soccer in 60.
I appreciate it. Thanks. That was quite the intro.
We're really excited to get to know you a little bit. You know, you were just announced by the Galaxy 2 weeks ago. What's it been like training with the club, and what are your initial impressions of your new teammates, the technical staff, and the front office? Has anything stood out?
Yeah, it's been great. I think it's been really nice to get to know the guys, get to know the staff. It's a different sort of pressure and it's a different sort of standard within Galaxy, which I think is a great thing. And I think it's a club that has so much history in the league, and obviously, I've been a fan of the MLS my entire life, and being able to play for a club like this that's so storied is, you know, it's a really cool and an exciting time in my career.
Absolutely. So you just arrived with the team at the Coachella Valley Invitational Tournament, where the Galaxy are going to be playing a total of 4 games. Have you heard anything about what the plan is? Do you anticipate getting some playing time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just trying to get all the guys playing time, all the guys kind of getting minutes under our belt, and that's what preseason is for. And obviously LA has had a very short off season, and, you know, being in the championship, you only have a few weeks off. And so the guys came in sharp. They've, you know, the level has been really high. So I think these next 2 weeks is just to, you know, prepare for the year. And we have a lot of different tournaments and different cups that we're in. So we're going to need everybody.
Absolutely. And this will give you a lot of time, lots of games out there, as you mentioned. But, you know, when a new player joins one of the teams we cover, we always like to get to know them a little bit outside of their playing career. What can you tell us about growing up in the, by all accounts, quaint and charming community of Alamo in Northern California? I think I read somewhere that
That's
you played. But you played soccer, baseball, and basketball as a kid. Is that true?
Yeah, so I played all 3 sports. I'm just a sports junkie. My favorite show growing up is SportsCenter. I still watch everything. So when I was younger, I was always just doing something, whether it was organized sports or whether it was with my brothers or anybody in my family. Just, in the backyard, in the front yard shooting hoops. I was always just around sports, and it's something that I love. And, to be able to live out my dream of being a, professional soccer player is amazing.
That's awesome. So would you go from like basketball to soccer practice all in one night, or?
It definitely depended on the season, but there was a lot of driving that my parents had to do. Whether it was from the game to another game to training to a game, whatever it was. But I feel super fortunate and extremely grateful, for everything that they did for me and for my siblings, and, all the opportunities that they provided for us. So it was a lot of time in the car, a lot of homework and eating in the car in between different sports.
Oh, I'm sure. And I'm sure also as like a lifelong athlete, having your knee injury, that got us wondering, like, after such a long recovery process, you must be itching to get onto the field. What are your goals for your first season with the Galaxy?
Yeah, I'm so excited. It was a long year, like you said. It was a lot of patience. It was a lot of mental fortitude, just to, a lot of days I was like, I didn't want to get up and go to rehab again. It was just pushing through. So my mentality was just try to get better every single day, whatever the exercise or whatever the, was in my rehab program for that particular day. And whereas now it's like, looking back on the past year, I'm really proud of the work that I did, the work that my PT did, a lot of the staff up in San Jose. So, they've provided me with a huge, base to build off of. And I think a goal for this year is just to compete, just to get back into the, competition level and, get back to doing what I love. Just being out for so long, and kind of, it was a lot of me versus me, I guess, for all of last year. And now just to be able to compete and, help the team in whatever way that is.
I want to dive into that mental aspect that you're talking about, because I read somewhere that you've gone on the record talking about some of the mental challenges of such a high stretch position as a goalkeeper, and that you've worked with sports psychologists to improve your performance. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How would you explain it to a non-goalkeeper? What makes the position so uniquely challenging?
Yeah, I think there's like an old adage that's like 90% mental, 10% physical for goalkeeping. And honestly, it might even be more than that. It's such a position that you need high level confidence. You need to be highly engaged, just because you're not always in the play. So if the ball's on the other side of the field, or, might not be in your defensive half, you have to stay locked in. You have to stay engaged. And I think there's so many goalkeepers around the world that can make amazing saves, but it's all about the timing of the save. And it's all about, coming up with a big one, or coming up with one that either, helps the team stay in the match, or maybe you win it with the 88th minute up 1-0. And I think with all of that, it's just the mental ability to stay focused and to stay ready for whenever the team needs you.
So what's your trick? How do you just lock in and don't walk out? What's the secret?
I'm continuing to work on that every day. Working with, performance coaches, working with therapists, I think is just a huge part of my life and my career. And I'm super proud to own that. And it's something I continually work on, because I am by no means a finished product. And I think I'm only getting better with, on that side of my game.
All right. So looking back a little, when you were sidelined with injury, San Jose also went through a historically difficult year, which included giving up the most goals ever conceded by a club in regular season play. Speaking of emotionally challenging situations, I can imagine that it wouldn't have been easy for you watching the team struggle and not being able to help. How would you say that experience impacted you as a player and a person?
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough for everybody last year within the club. Obviously those guys were and still are like some of my closest friends, and, to see them going through such a struggle and not be able to do anything about it. That was really difficult. And I think a lot of last year, I tried to focus my energy within my own rehab experience. Just, I had to give 110% every single day with, what I was doing. And I think there was a lot of last year that I wish I could have given more, whatever that was, but I just couldn't. And it was tough to, be around that environment, and I think have the guys struggle like they did. But also at the end of the day, this year's a new year for me and for them. And I think, they'll do well, and I'm excited to play them a few times.
Awesome. And, we talked recently about an LAFC original leaving his club in that of Eric Duenas, who first started with the academy at 12 years old and then got traded to Houston Dynamo. You could really sense the sadness from fans about Duenas moving on. And it occurred to me that you're also in a very similar situation for you with San Jose, whom you joined when you were 13, 14 years old and represented for over a decade. What does it feel like embarking on a new chapter after such a long time with your hometown club?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up like as a fan. I grew up as an Earthquakes fan, and we would go to games when I was in the academy, and just always trained with them throughout my entire life. It felt like, but I also think that it's a super exciting chapter to almost expand and try something new and get out of my comfort zone. Just because San Jose has been home for so long, and I think as an athlete and as a person, like the only way we grow is by challenging ourselves and by getting out of our what we're used to. So I think this opportunity is exactly that. And, San Jose will always be home to me, and they mean so much to me. But at the same time, this is a business and this is professional sports. And I'm so excited to be here and, to represent this club.
All right. Within that, not to twist the knife more, JT, but San Jose looks at Galaxy as their biggest rival in the league. What do you think your emotions are going to be heading into your first California Clásico and wearing the crest of your former rival on your jersey?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I've thought about that a bit. I think it'll really set in probably the week of that particular match. But also at the end of the day, it's just another game. And I think I'll try to approach it that way until I see, all of the people who I'm so close with, and not just the players, but also the staff up there. As when you've been at a place for so long, you establish relationships with, the kitmen, the admins, the media people. Like those are the people who it'll be really fun to see and to play against. And, I hope that they're rooting for me, although they're probably not rooting for Galaxy. But it'll be great.
And who are your parents rooting for? What are they going to be wearing?
Definitely Galaxy jerseys.
Awesome. All right. So you mentioned before you played baseball and basketball. I also saw somewhere that you feel your game as a goalkeeper benefited from your involvement in these sports. Would you go so far as to recommend that any goalkeeping prospect playing other sports that require excellent ball handling skills is a good thing? Or is there something that could be said for focusing early on one sport that someone is best at?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's different for everybody. I think for me personally, being in these sports, you find a lot of parallels between basketball and goalkeeping, or just the lateral movements. And I was a shortstop in baseball, and it's similar lateral movements, but also you're kind of the leader on the field. And I think I grew up in a lot of different leadership roles in the different sports, but I also think that it's beneficial to have a lot of different soccer experiences from a very young age. And I wish that there was one way that was better than the others, but you look around and, different goalkeepers, whether it's Matt Turner, who only started playing when he was 13 or 14, or these different guys. And then you also have people who have been a goalkeeper their entire life and are at an amazing level. So I think that there's positives and negatives to both approaches. But for me and for my experience, I can't speak highly enough for what those different sports gave me from a physical level, but also the mental and leadership side of things too.
All right. So you just mentioned Turner, but of course the U.S. has had its fair share of excellent keepers such as Keller, Friedel, Tim Howard. As a kid or a teenager, were there any goalkeepers that you looked up to and modeled your game after?
Yeah, I mean, Tim Howard's a huge one. I think he was like the prime example of American goalkeeping when I was coming up, and whether it's for Everton or whether it's for the national team, I was always watching him. I would say a few others just from around the MLS would probably be John Bush was another one. Played for the Quakes for a long time and a few different teams, but he was someone who I trained with when I was younger, and he's been a huge kind of role model of mine to, model my game after, but also just take different pieces of advice from him. But also, like those other names you mentioned, I grew up watching soccer, so I felt like I was always watching goalkeepers and, trying to take what they did well and to apply it to me and, try to take their best attributes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, JT, so much for your time. We really appreciate you taking a moment away from Coachella to spend time with us. We're really excited to see you out there and see you playing again for LA Galaxy now. JT Marcinkowski, this is Soccer in 60. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Appreciate it.
And we're back from the interview. Nina, you did a great job. I think one of my biggest takeaways from this interview is the fact that JT's parents have made the change. They've switched sides. They're going to the Galaxy and no longer going to be Earthquake fans.
Absolutely. He was so much fun to talk to. And I just enjoyed our conversation. It is interesting when you see, those alliances, because soccer can be religion. Having to go to the other side can be really difficult, but I love the way he's embracing this and has really taken to the fact that LA Galaxy has a lot of history in the MLS, and he's embracing the new challenge. And I think his personality reminds me a lot of another keeper that Galaxy has, J McDaddy, as I will call him. So super excited to see how the two of them vibe on and off the pitch.
Yeah, and not to bury the lead, because that interview with JT was great, but there is some news that came out just over the past week in the fact that Dejan Jovalic is no longer an LA Galaxy member. He has been acquired by Sporting Kansas City in exchange for $4 million. It's the first cash for player trade in MLS history. And Nina, this is huge news. This is a major part of the LA Galaxy offense this past season. What do you think is going to happen to that midfield, to that forward line?
Ooh, I mean, it's going to be a difficult climb for them. Fortunately, they have a lot of these preseason games. They have 5 games, I believe, at Coachella. So they have a lot of time to play with in terms of getting that center core structure strong again. But that's a huge change for the defending champions. So we will see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be big. And you know what? Let's move over to the Empire Strykers. And what do we need to do before we get to the Strykers, Nina?
We got to pay some bills. That's right. National Core is one of the nation's largest nonprofit affordable housing developers and a proud sponsor of your MASL team, the Empire Strykers. At National Core, they believe that soccer has the power to transform lives just like they do. They believe in building strong communities on and off the field. To learn more about National Core and their mission, go to nationalcore.org. And with that, we're actually going to do something fun. And I'm going to toss it to myself in the future, who is going to be recording the Empire Strikers segment live from the field, or not live, I guess, but recording from the field after tonight's Empire Strikers game. Take it away, Nina.
Thanks, Nina. I'm here, of course, with Philly. We could not do a Strikers segment without the man who is the voice of the Empire Strikers. Philly, let's talk about this week.
First and foremost, the nicest thing you've ever said about me in the last 7 years. Yes, as you can see, we're turfside here at Toyota Arena. It's the 5th of February. Wild. We just got done with an incredibly exciting matchup between the Chihuahua Savage and the Empire Strikers. Despite a valiant effort and a hat trick by Alan Perez, the defending champions were just too much for our hometown Empire Strikers. They won by a score of 6-5. But I don't see a problem with this loss. There is no losing if you learn. And considering the effort that the Strikers did have on Sunday, where they lost to the defending champs 11-5, this was a much better performance and a total team performance by the Strikers.
Yeah, let's go back in time, because in the last match on February 2nd, we saw Chihuahua score 4 open net goals against us. And unfortunately, that was them doing their homework. They read ahead of time. They learned our playing style. They knew we were going to pull that 6th attacker, and they took full advantage in that time period, and they were able to capitalize. And I did not see that as much tonight. So there were major adjustments made by Coach Obasi.
You go back to that Sunday game, and look, despite a 2-goal effort by Justin Stinson, despite a 2-goal effort by Marco Fabian, the Chihuahua Savage were red hot. You look at their talisman, Jorge Rios, who leads the league in points. He had 2 goals. Arturo Valle had 2 goals. Jose Gilberto Lopez had 2 goals. El Flaquito, the captain himself, had 2 goals. But what we have to talk about as well is the goalkeeping tandem of Cristian Hernandez and Diego Reynoso. The Strikers had far more shots on goal in that Sunday game than the Savage did. But look, they're the back-to-back champions for a reason. They put on a good performance. That was Sunday. Today, the Empire did strike back. They were just unsuccessful capitalizing on a couple of attempts that could have easily propelled them over the defending champs.
Yeah, I really felt like in that final minute we were about to tie it up and we had that opportunity and the momentum. And I think if it had gone into OT, we could have clinched it and we could have won it out. But unfortunately, the chips didn't fall and we went into the game. We have 2 losses now at home against Chihuahua. Not ideal going into the last half of the season and as we make our playoff push.
But this is a team that's continuing to build on. We saw the debut of Leo Espinosa. He was wearing the number 9 jersey. For those of you who didn't remember, he had that cheeky backheel goal late in the half. He just got signed on February the 4th by the Empire Strykers. He's a 32-year-old target forward from Chile. Had himself a great performance. And as a target forward, you saw how he muscled his way through the Savage defense, creating some space and some opportunities. This is a team that looked a little more cohesive. I do think they're 1 or 2 more signings away from being a championship contending squad.
Which is something to say for a team that's got 20, 30 signings right now. I mean, our M2 team is stacked. Our M1 team is stacked. Really, we keep building and building and building. You would hope that this would be the season where the chips can fall in our favor.
At the end of the day, you just got to make the playoffs. Considering where the Strykers were last season with only 3 wins, over the course of 24 games, they've more than doubled that output with an opportunity to continue to carry on. If they can sneak into the playoffs and catch fire as we go into the postseason, the Strykers are going to be a tough team going into the postseason.
Yeah, you want to be heating up right as the season is ending, and that way you can truly capitalize on all of your momentum. And I think what you're saying is absolutely accurate. We're continuing to sign players. We're continuing to build. We're not laying off the gas. And what we're seeing from Coach Obasi is the ability to adapt, which I think is going to prove to be huge in the final half of the season.
Of course, and you saw their grittiness today. I mean, the Strykers went down by 3 goals early within the first quarter. Most teams would write it off, warm up the bus, send a letter home to mother, come pick me up. But no, they fought their way back into the game and they tied it quickly. And they really gave the Savage a run for their money. Had it not been for some fancy-dancy razzle-dazzle by the Savage in the 4th quarter, we might be going to overtime, which we would have managed to secure a point. I don't consider this loss a bad thing. In particular, if you can learn from your losses, there is no losing. Going in with a 2-week break almost, they're going to be hosting the Baltimore Blast, another incredible team in indoor. If the Strykers can stick it to the Baltimore Blast, I think that's going to speak volumes. In particular, they get a break, which is important for both you and I.
Yeah, so 4 more home games left on the season, but a massive road stint as well. So as you go onto the road, you want to capture at least a point, right? Let's talk about that. We need to figure out a way to get at least 1 as we're away, and I think that can come in the way of Tacoma. I think that can come in the way of some other teams, but we're hosting some strong teams at home too in the future. You've got to bring on the Sockers. You got to bring Milwaukee. Milwaukee is doing great things.
In my entirety of calling games in the indoor league, and this goes back 5 seasons. What kind of a word is that? I've never called a game against the Milwaukee Wave. I am so excited to welcome back Ian Bennett. My very first broadcast ever, the first goal call I ever had was an Ian Bennett goal, IV26, so I hope he gets to take the turf. You're right. We take on the Blast. We take on the Milwaukee Wave. We host the Texas Outlaws, and, of course, we host the San Diego Sockers. In any game, I don't care if it's indoor soccer or professional basketball, you got to win on the road and be competitive. You got to win at home, and you got to be competitive on the road. Every single point matters. While the Strykers are still within that playoff top 8, they do need to secure some wins in order to feel comfortable, because Dallas lost to Texas. Texas looked okay. Tacoma can still very well put in a Herculean effort and do some things. The Strykers are not out of the danger zone. They're not a shoo-in into the postseason. And with 4 home games left, they got to at least get a couple of wins here and a couple of points on the road.
Absolutely. And, let's talk a little about Ian Bennett, because you mentioned this name, and it's a big name to you. Tell everybody, who is Ian Bennett? Why should we even care?
I mean, one of the most legendary players that this indoor league has had. IB26, Ian Bennett, also one of the greatest human beings you will ever come across. You thought Frank Tayu was a goal-scoring machine? Yeah, he is. But Ian Bennett, not too far off. If you look at the Mount Rushmore of goal scorers in the indoor league, of course you got to talk about Frank Tayu. Of course you have to talk about Nick Pereira. Craig Charles of San Diego. But Ian Bennett very much in that conversation. IB26 is an amazing player.
Absolutely. All right, so let's role play. I'll be Obasi, or no, you be Obasi, and I'll be the player.
You can't be Obasi because you're way down in here. I gotta look up to you. I'm a better Obasi than you are.
All right. So talk to me. How are we getting through this final push? How are we getting to playoffs, coach?
At this point, we really got to utilize the efforts of Espinosa. We saw how quickly he gelled with the team in his first game. As a muscular target forward, he's really going to attract a lot of defenders in the box anytime that he's going to be a threat. That's going to open things up for players like a Justin Stinson and a Marco Fabian. While Espinosa might not necessarily be the guy who's going to get the goals, he clearly has shown a knack and a bit of class and pizzazz at finding the back of the net. But anytime you have a player that's a threat in the box, that's going to open things up for the wings. And we know that Marco Fabian can find in the back of the net. We know that Justin Stinson can. These guys are top 10 goal scorers in the league. And oh, by the way, they're going to the All-Star game in Utica on February the 12th.
That's what I was just going to say. You know my transition. All right, let's talk All-Star game because they're going to Utica. It's going to be cold, first of all, first and foremost, but it's indoor. So the cold doesn't matter for anyone. And, you know, it's really exciting to have Justin Simpson and Marco Fabian representing us out there. They're going to be joined by some of the top talent in the MASL. So very exciting to have them going. But what I look forward to, hat tricks, more hat tricks and more hat tricks.
Okay, so that's 9 goals right there, which you very well could see from any player. I'm beyond excited that we have an All-Star game. This is the first All-Star game that the MASL has had since 2021 when it was hosted by our friends at Kansas City at Cable Dahmer Arena. One of the best fan bases in the league is at the Adirondack Bank Center in Utica. Some of the best fans and some of the most ruckus fanatics and supporters in the league. The fact that we have an All-Star game is clutch. I wish we can fly over to upstate New York to bear witness to that. But Fabian will be representing. Stinson will be representing. It's going to be a darn good time. Finally, we have an All-Star game back in this league.
Absolutely. And to build on that, maybe next year we see maybe a skills challenge, if you will. Like, let's go back to the goalkeeper shootouts. MLS is known for these like old school goalkeeper shootouts in the 90s where it was literally one-on-one dribbling the same way that they do PKs here in the MASL. So why not?
I don't disagree. And while Vacation February in Utica might seem appealing to some, I would prefer to be in Oceanside or possibly Ontario for the next All-Star game. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, MASL. We'd love to see you all under the bright lights at Toyota Arena. At the very least, the weather will be warmer. But again, no disrespect. I love the fans at Utica, and I love the Adirondack Bank Center. And I think our homie Bigsy is going to be on the call. And if that's the case, rock and roll, you're going to be in for a really entertaining time.
It will be definitely a lot of fun. Will be definitely is what she just said.
Yes.
So if you needed more
way to say a lot without saying anything.
If you need more superlatives, we're here for it. But really what it comes down to is Empire has to lock in right now. There has a lot to go, lots of matches to happen, and we need to score points. We need goals. We need wins. And these last 2 games haven't given us that. So as we get excited and rallied up for this All-Star game, we also need to look ahead and make sure that we're taking care of our team at home and on the road.
And, of course, the next game will be here under the bright lights at Toyota Arena on February the 16th, 2 days after Valentine's Day. Get your Valentine's Day ticket to come here to Toyota Arena to see the Empire Strykers take on the Baltimore Blast. And we welcome back Sweet P himself, Jesus Pacheco, who's really found a home in Baltimore. Make sure you tune into that. And I would say that concludes our Striker segment here at Toyota Arena.
Back to you, Nina.
Wow, Nina, you look great.
You did well. You did great job there, Nina. Well done.
It was a fun match, you know, playing Chihuahua twice, as we can say we did. I'm not sure what the result is going to be quite yet, but I'm sure I will cover it, or I just covered it a minute ago. And with that, we're going to transition over to Angel City news and notes. Angel City made some waves again this week. They are also going to be playing in the Coachella Valley Invitational, but not for another week or so. Savvy King. Here is a good one. So I want to talk about her because I had a need to sip my coffee some more moment because it said she was coming back. And I'm like, we never signed Savvy King. I would have known. Aha, she is an LA native. So I figured it out. I did make the coffee work, but Bay FC is getting $200,000 in an intra-league transfer funds, plus $100,000 in 2026. Savvy King was raised in West Hills, California, born in Santa Monica, California, and attended Agora Hills High School, which you might know from the area surrounded by the fire. Fortunately, Agora Hills not super affected, but Savvy King is coming home. She was actually drafted second overall in 2024 by Bay FC and made 20 NWSL match appearances in all competitions, 2 assists on the pitch in 1,220 minutes in her first season in the NWSL. She's pretty amazing. Third youngest draftee in NWSL history at 18 years old. So fits in nicely with our crew, I'd say.
I think it does. And when I was reading up on this and learning a little bit more about Savvy, is that it's the second overall pick just last season. And after a really strong rookie season, I'm rather surprised, regardless of the transfer fee that was paid, that Bay FC would have given her up that quickly, Medina. What do you think about that? Do you think it was just not a culture fit and she fits into LA a little bit better?
I'm not sure. Is it just Angel City knew that she would fill a missing piece here? I really don't know, but that is a very interesting point, because if I had someone so strong and so young, I wouldn't want to give them up, not for $300,000. We just talked about $4 million. So this seems like chump change.
Yeah, and the other thing that I also found interesting is it's only a one-year deal with a club option for 2026. So I've seen a few of these now. It's similar. Or maybe I was thinking ahead of your next signing is a very similar deal to Alana. But are they now only going to go for 1 year, 2 year deals like the professional sports teams used to do 40, 50 years ago? Make sure they fit, make sure they're the right thing, and then maybe sign them to a longer term deal?
You and I are on the same level, Team K for the win, because that's exactly what I thought as I've been looking at, the deal we're about to talk about, as well as prior deals. Right now, we're seeing this trend of signing for 1 year with an option for another year. And I don't know if it has to do with the fact that, Parsons is new. He is just coming in. So all these deals were established before him. So maybe it was out of respect for whoever was going to come in to allow them to build their own team and to extend these offers and to not set them up or lock them in for long term. So that way they can truly make the team their own. Or if, like you said, this is trial and error period. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of like it, right? Because when you're on a shorter term deal, not that you're not a professional, not that you're going to go out and give 100% every game, but I think the reality is when you're only on a 1 year deal, there's a little bit more urgency to try and get that solidified to stay in LA, especially with a team like Angel City, who is clearly making the right road, be constructed, right? Parsons is coming in. He's doing a lot of things almost immediately. Now you're actually starting to see some of these players come in, even without a coach.
Yeah.
This is pretty impressive that Angel City is putting together this type of roster this quickly and this efficiently, like you said, without that burden of a 5 year deal or a 4 year deal where you're locked in. And I don't know about no trade clauses in the NWSL, but when you sign a 4 year deal, these people want to stay here forever for the whole length of that contract. And if you don't want to have that, as Parsons coming in, as clearly he doesn't sound like, he wants to make sure that again, that culture fit. It's like he said in the interview last week, he said, look, we're going to hire the right coach, and it's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be next week. It might be August. Right. And I think that's the biggest thing with some of these shorter term deals.
Yeah. And so one other thing I want to point out about this deal with Savvy King, you and I had chatted briefly, and I said, when we hold this U.S. Futures camp, when Emma Hayes brings all these young kids over to LA to take a look at them, we need to be out there scouting. King was there. King was at that camp, and she was one of the players that definitely stood out. So, I'm just saying, I think we called it. I think we told Angel City was listening, and they were like, good point, Nina, Tim, and Philly. We will go and we will recruit. And now we have Savvy King. I'm giving up.
I would give us credit too, because again, we do cover these guys, and I know that some of these people do listen to us, and for good cause, right? We've got good content, things like that. But I think the reality is when you go and you don't just look at one player, you look at multiple players off that pitch, right? And how do they act off the pitch? How do they act on it? Are they nice? Are they not nice? And I think those things really, really make a difference, especially with the team like Angel City, who is really, I'm not going to say drink the Kool-Aid type of thing, but they really want you to be part of the
They want you to embrace their core values. Like
right. They just don't want players.
Statement first. And as Parsons said, their priority is how they treat people. So, I love that they're taking their time and they're finding the right people. One other thing that Parsons teased last week was a new international signing, and we got it. We got it right.
This one's a good one.
Miyabi Moriah. So she's on a 1-year contract through 25 with a club option for 26. And she is fantastic as well. 8 goals in 118 matches. She is currently, or she was playing in the Japanese WE League, and she helped the club win their first ever WE League title in 2022. She was awarded Best 11. Absolutely fantastic. And what I like about this also is she's actually joining players that she's played with before. Former schoolmate and teammates, June Endo and Hannah Stombaugh. So absolutely fantastic. They all went to grammar school together. This is another like Giselle and Alyssa moment for me.
I think I was just going to mention that about June Endo, and you mentioned a couple other players that they've already been part of. They know each other, and putting them together on the pitch at the same time, again, that camaraderie is going to come right through, I think, almost immediately.
Absolutely. And you're going to see that playing out really well, because one of the things when you grow up playing with somebody, there aren't words. You just know their run patterns. It's very organic. It's very natural. So you'll see players playing the ball up and you're like, where's somebody? And then all of a sudden they'll run onto it. And that's one of my favorite things when I have seen like siblings or twins play together, or cousins that have grown up, is they know how to make those runs and they already know what the other person needs. So if we're building that kind of chemistry, we now have 3 grammar school and former teammates together. We've got obviously the Thompson sisters. I think this is going to be the foundation for a really good season. And not only that, I want to highlight one other thing before we ran out of time with Angel City. Alana Kennedy, who is the new signed player from Australia, has actually been called up for Australia for the She Believes Cup. So anticipating getting a lot more call-ups to come for our episode next week. Angel City's off to a good start, I'd say, without a coach, without much, tangible other than facilities and new ownership. This week, I give them an A.
Yeah, I would give them an A too. They've done some really high quality moves over the past several days, and we're pretty hard on Angel City, as we should be. But I think the reality is they're really looking out for the long term of the club, making sure it's a culture fit, making sure that they treat people the way people need and want to be treated. And immediately within the past couple of weeks, really, they've made that very well known to everybody. The new training center, that's the way people need to be treated. Parsons coming in, making sure that it's people first, right? That they're doing these types of things to make sure that the club is going to be not only successful off the pitch with everything else, but also that they're very successful on the pitch. And when you have 5, 7, 8 players that are that core group that are signed for a couple of strong years, I'm with you there. They're going to make a very strong run this season.
Absolutely. And with that, Tim, let's turn it over to your team, OCSC. What is new in Orange County?
Well, Orange County Soccer Club this week there's been some very big changes, and I'm wearing the owner's jersey this week. So if you can't see me if you're listening on the radio, I've got on the newest kit from Orange County. It is the owner's jersey, and the owners they've always been of the mindset that they are going to nurture and develop and train their players to have very strong long-term professional careers. You talk about guys like Peter Nugent, who's Orange County's president of soccer operations and the GM. And he said their structure is designed specifically for this. Not only nurtures talent, but also creates clear pathways for young players to build successful professional careers. Case in point, Owen Lamb, just this past week, has made a big move as he's headed off to, and I'm going to say this right, Gunnar, my producer, I've been working on this all morning. It's Drogheda United in the League of Ireland Premier Division. He spent 2 years with Galaxy 2 and has 61 appearances. He had 2 years with Orange County where he made 59 appearances and had 4 goals. And I railed on Owen pretty good in the middle of last season because the structure of the club didn't really play into what his strengths were. And his strengths were to pinch in on the right-hand side and play more of an attacking fullback, right? Or defender. I'm using my terms from the 1980s. So as that fullback. But what the club did is they realized what he was doing, and the other center backs would pinch down. So they were no longer getting burned along that left wing when Owen would go up and then wouldn't backtrack as hard as he did later in the season. And these types of things. And so Owen going to Ireland, he's going to play against very good competition. He's going to play in a very similar sized stadium as what he was playing in Irvine. It's got about a 3,500 seat stadium, but what it is they pack the place every night. So he's going to be playing against some good competition, Nina, and it's fun to see these guys make it over to Europe and continue their professional career there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to say that this is a developmental league, but at some point it does have a lot that goes into that. They are training players and they do make their name for where they can send players to. So, OCSC isn't the end all be all for a lot of these players. They have great ambitions. They want to get called up and things like that. So I think that's one of the things that makes this team unique is they do have to deal with the fact that once they've coached a player to success, they don't stay.
Right. And that's okay because you play for the name on the front of the jersey, not on the back, right? You play for Orange County. And while you have your favorite players, things like that, I believe what the real true reality is these guys want to get and play at the highest level they possibly can. And if they need to move to Europe, that's what they do. We saw it with the Milan Alaski a couple of years ago coming out of Orange County. Now he's playing over in Europe. And with that, there is something that has been very fascinating. This just happened. Orange County has a partner club, as we all know, called Feyenoord Rotterdam. And they just announced that one of their players that played for Orange County, and I'm going to work on this one too. I've been working on this one all morning. Correde Osandina has been the first player that has ever had come out of Orange County and has been transferred for a second time. So this is a big deal. Nobody has ever done this coming out of Orange County. Normally they transfer over to Europe and they play for a couple of years and then they'll come back, but it's never on a transfer. They're a free agent, something like this. But to get transferred a second time means that what the core values and that core training that they got in Orange County at the soccer club is now translating, and they will go and potentially make some Premier League teams later on in the future. And this is just fabulous for the local growth of Orange County soccer.
Not to mention, if they can make more money on that second transfer, that's more money to reinvest back into the club and bring up the next guy. Got to do it. It's absolutely
right. And that's one of the things with Feyenoord being a partner club and Orange County was the first one in USL Championship to do this, to have that type of stuff. It's really, really strong for not only Orange County, but also USL as the entire league. And that flows over to the women's side as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now I'm going to throw it to my future self, who is still looking fabulous, to talk Strikeforce. Nina, take it away.
All right, let's talk Strikeforce. So we've got some good stats that we can compare today, but I want to go with number one first and foremost because it happened just a few minutes ago. Alan Perez with a hat trick. Absolutely fantastic, earning that first place spot on Strikeforce. And then second place, we're going to talk about Marco Fabian. Third place, Justin Stinson. And our super sub, Robert Palmer. But let's dive into it. Hat trick. Hat trick. My favorite word of the night.
Throw your hatties out onto the turf. And as you can see, we still got the turf behind us. Look, Alan Perez, not only did he have 3 goals against the Savage tonight on February the 5th, he also scored against them on Sunday. He scored in 2 consecutive games against the defending champions. That's really impressive. All things considered, Alan Perez had a slow start to the season, but he's really come on strong as of late. When you score a hat trick against a defense that's as ferocious as Chihuahua, that speaks volumes. And for the young kid from Southgate representing Los Angeles and UC Riverside, go Highlanders, I'm beyond impressed with Alan Perez's performance tonight.
All right. And then in second place, we mentioned Marco Fabian, the name you cannot ignore on Empire Strikers. We've made a lot out of him. And he also had 2 goals and 1 assist. You know, impressive stats. We're not going to be upset at that.
No, Marco Fabian, again, gave it his all in the performance against the Savage on Sunday. So he had the 2 goals, had the assist, an impressive performance, and he really kept the Strikers within range of the defending champions. But as we've seen time and time again, the Savage are a top team, but the Strikers would not have been in a position to be competitive against the Savage had it not been for the performance of Marco Fabian and the player that you're going to talk about in third place.
Absolutely. So Justin Stinson, we named him as one of the MASL All-Stars, and let's talk about his performance because also 2 goals.
Yeah, he had 2 goals. And the one thing that I'm seeing, I mean, of many things, the chemistry between Stinson and Fabian is very evident. They go back and forth to each other quite a bit, and they're making one heck of a tandem, dare I say a strike force for the Empire going out there and competing against the opposition. 4 goals between the two. Marco Fabian with a point. That's 5 offensive goal contributions between the two. I mean, there you got your 5 goals in the game on this past Sunday, but the Strikers go successful by the performances and of the legwork of Fabian and Justin Stinson.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're not seeing any defenders on the list this time. You know, we've usually had a very even separation between all the different positions, but this time we're recognizing forward, midfielder, which I don't know if that speaks to Abassi really pushing goals in this last few matches against Chihuahua, because it has been highly competitive going against the reigning champs.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at our super sub, it's Robert Palmer. What Robert Palmer is doing this season that's been very impressive is he's collecting dimes, Nina. Today in the game on the 5th against the Chihuahua Savage, he had his 10th assist of the season. That's really impressive for a player that's more known for playing defense and getting blocked shots. He's very much contributing to the offense. And the Strikers at one point, I don't know if that's the case after today's game, but the second highest scoring team in the league. And Robert Palmer's contributed several assists to that category.
And it makes the difference when your goalkeeper is scoring, your defense is scoring, everyone is scoring. You know, they say defense wins games, but Abassi is really putting that out on the line. And, you know, we are very fortunate to have forwards that are also putting in the hat trick. So there we go. There we have it. That is our strike force. And they are continuing to put it in the bank, to put the goals in the basket.
In the basket?
I was going to say
put
basket.
The bread in the basket, the ice cubes in the tray, however you want to call it. Yes, the Strikers are collecting goals. What they need to do is defend goals. But either way, that is your strike force, and that is our segment. Congratulations to all the nominees. You deserve it.
Future Nina and future Philly, you rocked that. Absolutely incredible to hear about that strike force. But let's finish this off. Tim, it's been a fantastic episode. I love working with you. Team K for the win.
Totally Team K for the win. I love it, Nina. A great show. Hey, everybody, thanks for hanging out with us today. I know that we're not live, but hey, we'll be live every time we can be. And Nina, it's always fabulous to work with you. Plug the pod for us, would you?
Absolutely. Empire Strykers, that's Strikers with a Y, YouTube. Search for Soccer in 60 on all major podcast platforms. We're also live every Thursday on 1490 AM, 98.1 FM in much of the Inland Empire. And of course, the KMET app or KMET1490am.com. Soccer in 60, you can't get enough.
No, I cannot. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.